19th, 5:30 p.m., and it's time for another live stream draft. Let's go. In case I forgot to mention, my name is Adam Riancho, and here we are on UnderdogFantasy.com. Great place to play. If you have not joined Underdog before, it's probably the best place to prepare for your season-long league. It is best ball, so any team you draft has no time commitment during the regular season. It's just an automatic start into your lineup. Who scores the best? Who scores the most points in your roster? Best lineup is what gets started every single week, and you don't have to make any waiver moves. But we are going to enter the Puppy 2 this afternoon. And if you'd like to join me in this draft, you can sign up for Underdog using my code Nice and Blunt, and you will get a 50% deposit match on sign up to $250 if you are a new customer. So go ahead and use that. We will break down this tournament rules right before we hop in. It is half PPR all across Underdog, unless it's a super flex league. You're starting one quarterback, two running backs, three wide receivers, one tight end, one flex, and 10 bench spots. Here's the breakdown right here. And so it's an 18-round draft. And this is a $5 tournament. And if you make the playoffs, you get your money back. After that, you enter a pod of 10 teams. And the winner of that pod advances to the semifinal, where you're in a new 10-team pod, and if you win that, you advance to the 280-seat final, where you will win $750, which would be the max entry fee if you were to use all 150 slots for this tournament. I'm not going to use 150. I'm probably going to only do like 10 or 12 in this tournament. This is my 5th team so far in the Puppy 2. And we're shooting for first place. We would take home 100K if we do win this tournament. So with all that out of the way, let's hop into this draft. If you are watching and you want to join me, there is a bit of a delay. So hit the button right now, and I will wait about 5-6 more seconds, and then I'll hop in. And hopefully if you want to join me, you can hop in as well. But 3, 2, 1... let's get in. I think that's the delay. Like last I checked, it was about 10 seconds. Sometimes I've counted it out and it's as high as like 13 seconds. And that's kind of a bummer when like I ask you guys your opinion on the next pick. It does take some time. Like the clock will time out by the time I have to make the selection. And sometimes I'm getting the player you guys want me to get. Sometimes I'm not. But you know, it is what it is. But there's still a few spots left, 3 available in this draft. So we'll get going pretty soon, and we'll see what happens. But boy, the trends of some of these drafts I've noticed lately, wide receiver just continues to get pushed up in this format. I had a team earlier today where I took Josh Allen in the middle of round 4. I was pick 6. So I got Josh Allen at 43. Then I got Travis Etienne at 54. Etienne fell like 11 spots. And I also got Alvin Kamara at pick 91. Kamara usually goes around the 6-7 turn, and I got him 20 picks after that. So running back is just really taking a hit, just not the focal point of these leagues. And given the fact that you have to start 3 every week, it's more of a pass first league. Wide receiver is the premium in these drafts. So we got pick 3, and we're going to be able to get a great wide receiver. At worst, we would be in line for Christian McCaffrey at pick 3, but I am hopeful we get CeeDee Lamb or Tyreek Hill. I expect that to happen. But despite these trends, CMC, Bijan, Brees, they have not fallen in terms of ADP. I would expect them to move down the board a little bit, but it has not happened. Once you hit round 2, that's where running backs really get depreciated. But we get lucky here. We get CD at pick 3, and I'm very happy with that. CeeDee Lamb is my number 1 wide receiver this week. And on Underdog, I actually draft him more than Christian McCaffrey at pick 1 because I don't like to have to wait 2 full rounds to draft my first wide receiver. Getting your wide receiver 1 at pick 24 on Underdog is a difficult position to be in. Howard is asking, who do I prefer, Puka or Garrett Wilson? I think because we've seen Puka already produce at such a high rate, I would draft Puka Nacua over Garrett Wilson. I think you can make an argument that Garrett Wilson should be drafted above him. There is a scenario where Garrett Wilson finishes as a top 3 wide receiver. I do feel comfortable having him when I get him at like pick 11. But I think after last year's record-setting rookie season, another year for Cooper Kupp and his injuries, and also an offense I feel more confident in terms of the Rams offense, I prefer to have, in my view, their best weapon overall, Puka Nacua, as opposed to Garrett Wilson. I mean, you can argue that Breece Hall is truly the best weapon in the Jets offense, and although Aaron Rodgers is there, he's still old, coming off an Achilles injury, and you really cannot say with absolute certainty that he will have the better quarterback next season. I think Puka actually has the better quarterback play in Matthew Stafford. So it's very nitpicky between the two. In this draft, Puka goes pick 11, Garrett Wilson goes pick 12, and I think if you had a strong stance that you preferred to take Garrett Wilson, I don't think I would argue with you too much. I think it's just personal preference, but I view them in the exact same tier, and I do have Puka just above Garrett Wilson. But so far in this draft, nothing is too out of the ordinary. We do see Jahmyr Gibbs at 10, and that team takes Saquon Barkley, pick 15. Definitely, helping yourself out at running back, but in these underdog drafts, to have your first wide receiver at pick 34, assuming that's what they do, they might take Josh Allen, hypothetically, or maybe Sam Laporta. It's just very difficult to compete, not just against this 12-team league, but against the entire field in the tournament with that start. Team 8 goes Breece Hall, Jonathan Taylor, and again, maybe it works out, maybe we're all wrong, but overall, most of the teams have at least one wide receiver through the first 2 rounds. Everybody else so far has 2, with the exception of Team 6. That goes Bijan, Jalen Waddle. But everything is pretty much typical. We do see Chris Olave go at 13, but when you are at the turn, when you are at the bookend, pick 12 or pick 1, you usually end up reaching on one of the players. So more of a unique approach, but I have seen Garrett Wilson, for instance, go at like pick 10, and then Chris Olave goes pick 15. So it's not like the most unique start, but it's definitely not typical. Usually people go Marvin Harrison, Drake London at pick 12, or Jahmyr Gibbs, Marvin Harrison. So not bad. But we're going to be on the clock with the next selection, and I do feel very confident in Nico Collins this season. I do view him as the wide receiver 1 in Houston, and we're at pick 22. He falls 3 spots. There's not that many teams where CeeDee Lamb is going to be paired up with Nico Collins in this tournament. So we have him, and you can kind of see it as a team 2 approach because CeeDee Lamb usually goes at pick 2. So we have a good start so far. I'm pretty confident with that. CeeDee Lamb, Nico Collins. And I think I'm also going to go with wide receiver at pick 3 in round 3, pick 27 overall. But my cat seems to be making a bit of an appearance here on the screen. You can see her tail, and she's in a bit of a mood at the moment. I feel like I need to feed her after this pick. I usually feed her around 6 p.m. It's getting there. It's fine. But I would much rather have DK Metcalf than Malik Neighbors. I do not feel confident in Daniel Jones, and while I don't love Geno Smith, I think he's a far better passer. The new offensive coordinator in Seattle really wants to use DK Metcalf. The new coach was raving about DK as the team's best weapon. And to start off with CeeDee Lamb, Nico Collins, DK Metcalf, I feel very, very safe with that start. But give me one moment while I feed this cat, who is going a little bit berserk at the moment. It's time for food. There you go. There you go. All right. Here we go. Fantasy Dog in the house. And yes, please like and subscribe if you have not done so already. Thank you for liking Fantasy Dog. Appreciate it. Nice to see you back in the chat once again. And so far, this is going to be a really good team. Very happy with the start. But we do see a bit of a reach at pick 26. Team 2 goes Derrick Henry. Not afraid to get their guy in this draft. They did take Tyreek Hill over CeeDee Lamb. Maybe they have another team in this tournament with CeeDee Lamb already and they want to diversify. But when you see Devon Achane at 23, Derrick Henry 26, pretty strong tell that team is just going with their convictions. But surprise, surprise, pick 10, like I mentioned, does go Josh Allen at pick 34. And boy, that is a hard strategy to come back from. When wide receivers being so pushed up, they're hopeful to get like Tank Dell as their wide receiver 1. Maybe they're going to be looking at T. Higgins or Amari Cooper. I think Amari Cooper is probably going to profile more as the best case scenario, given he's a true number 1 wide receiver on his team. There's a lot of upside with T. Higgins and Tank Dell, but I think from a consistency, week-to-week standpoint, you don't have to worry about, you don't have to hope on injury. Whoa, they go Dalton Kincaid. Wow, I really don't like Team 10's approach at all. They are not my favorite team. Really rough circumstance to come back from on Underdog specifically. If you're in your regular league, unless it's like a PPR format, you're never going to see this many wide receivers go off the board. And maybe that's how they're approaching it, but I don't love it. I will just make a note. I think Team 5 has a hilarious username. Not sure if you can see it, but Washington Foreskin at Team 5 deserves an award. That's what they should have named the team when they changed it from the racial slur to commander. Washington Foreskin. Fantasy Dog, thank you for the compliment. Anthony in the chat. Hey man, discovered your channel mid-November last year. Impressed with the channel, my friend. Appreciate you, pal. Very thankful for your review, the fact that you're impressed. And if you're chatting, that means you are subscribed to the channel. I appreciate it very much. And glad to see you back here this year. And hope that I can help you make it to your playoffs next season, win a championship. That's the goal. And yeah, thanks a lot, man. Appreciate it, Anthony. But oh boy, we're here at pick 46, and George Pickens has fallen to us, and I feel very comfortable going off the board as wide receiver 28. I guess wide receiver 30, given the next one would be Terry. And given the fact that I just got Travis Etienne in a previous draft at pick 54, I'm not going to take him. I'm going to grab George Pickens as the best value available to me. We start off with 4 wide receivers: CeeDee Lamb, Nico Collins, DK Metcalf, George Pickens. And as the positional value starts to increase, I mean, it's been a round and a half almost since we've seen a running back go off. Howard, I do not appreciate this slander. That is not nice. I was very explicit in the fact that I normally feed her at 6 p.m. I fed her early, and you watched me feed her. So this is very rude. But we see ETN go off at 47, and if Team 2 goes with 4 running backs, I think they are crazy. But very happy to go with Pacheco here at pick 51. 4 picks past ADP. Tremendous close to last season. I was going over some stats earlier this week. I'm prepping for my rankings videos, which will be posted in early July. I do not plan to post them this week or next. I do have jury duty next week, so that's going to mess with the schedule as well. But Pacheco, once he got a significant snap share to the point where it was like very clear he is the starter, he was almost averaging like 20 points per game. He was getting so much work and consistently seeing 20 touches. He's going to be a workhorse yet again. It's an excellent offense. And with some of the weird question marks at wide receiver on that team, I trust Pacheco's role without a doubt. They have not retained Jerick McKinnon. Even if they do bring him back later this offseason, he's very old, and I don't worry about him. They only have CEH behind him that is a threat. And who knows, maybe Deneric Prince, who they drafted last year, maybe he was like an undrafted free agent. Maybe he makes a bit of a splash, but I really just trust Pacheco as like a clear top 10 running back. I think I'd rather have Pacheco than Josh Jacobs, which is what ADP suggests is the value this year. And I think with a team that has three running backs at the gate here around the turn, and two teams with two running backs in the first two rounds on the other end, I would expect a decent amount of running backs to go off while we wait for our like around the long turn during like these odd rounds, like round 5 through 6. We have to wait, I think it's like 17 picks, something like that, before our next pick selection. And I would expect in round 6, in round 8 especially, we're probably going to see a lot more of those running backs go off the board. But I trust Pacheco very much. So to get him in here in round 5, I really like. We could have gone Mark Andrews and grabbed our tight end, but I'm not too upset to pass on him. We do see Kyle Pitts go at pick 50. I don't really like Team 2's strategy. I think Team 1 is pretty interesting. CMC, Mike Evans, Devontae Smith, Patrick Mahomes, Hollywood Brown. Pretty good stack with Mahomes and Hollywood. And moving off of running back when you draft Christian McCaffrey, I think is absolutely the strategy to implement. But Team 4 has 5 wide receivers at the gate. Team 5, Washington Foreskin, has bully tight end Trey McBride, Mark Andrews. And I don't personally love that strategy. I don't think it's the most effective way to use your early round picks. It could work out, but not the strategy I'm going to recommend personally. You're not going to see me do that. I'd rather wait on tight end a little bit more. I'd be very comfortable to grab George Kittle at pick 70, but you're probably never going to see me go with 2 tight ends through the first 5 rounds. Team 6, not bad. Jalen Waddle, Stephon Diggs, Christian Kirk as their wide receiver core with Bijan, James Cook. I think I probably would have gone Keenan Allen at pick 54 if I was team 6. But we still have a few more picks before ours. Team 7, pretty good start. St. Brown, Ayuk, Cooper Kupp, Lamar, Josh Jacobs, Kenneth Walker. Team 8, a little bit thin at wide receiver for yours truly, but they can do what they want. And then Team 10, with a third running back at pick 63 with Rachaad White. Yeah, not a fan of Team 10 at all. Not the way I would go. But Team 11's pretty good with CJ Stroud there at 59. And Team 12 with 1 tight end, 5 receivers for the first 6 rounds. Pretty solid. You can get really good running back value at the 7-8 turn. So I do think that's a decent strategy to have when you are at pick 12. Fantasy Dog says Andy Barron has Pacheco at 18 overall and had him at number 10. 14 overall, that's got to be like a different type of format, but Okay, here we are, pick 68, and wide receiver is definitely the way to go. Am I just going to take Addison, highest ranked player? He does have some upside. I could also go Lad McConkey, and given I'm a Charger fan, I'm going to go with Lad McConkey. The potential to be the wide receiver one in his offense, going to get a lot of targets. We're not truly counting on this wide receiver pick, given it's our fifth, but I think there is possibly a little more upside with McConkey, given the quarterback situation in Minnesota. And I think if you draft rookies early, Addison is a good pick because rookies usually produce more in like the second half of the year. I think Addison's going to be much more of a higher producer early on, while TJ Hawkinson is unavailable. But we're coming back around, and damn, I don't really want to go with a sixth wide receiver. But to take any running back here, I think is a reach. I got Kamara at pick 91 earlier today. And so I'm going to draft yet another receiver, and we're going to take a shot on these two rookies. Given our strength at the top, we're going to take a gamble that McConkey and Brian Thomas might be the guys that you like really want at the end of the year. And what this is going to allow us to do, I only need one more wide receiver through the rest of this draft. I could possibly get away with not taking a single other wide receiver, just settling on these six, just making the bet that the six that I have are strong enough to get it done at the position. I don't want to invest too heavily in my bench, but we definitely have the strongest wide receiver core, I think, of the entire group. While Team 12 also has 6 wide receivers through this point, they have Garrett Wilson as their one. We have CeeDee Lamb. And we're going to be able to go in any other direction the rest of the way here. And typically on Underdog, that is where the values lie. In the second and third of the draft. Like, if you can divide the draft into thirds every 6 rounds. Once you get to round 8 through 12, running back and quarterback are really, really valuable. Running back kind of dries up after round 13. Once you get to round 14, I think running back is not that strong. And then if you can get tight end early, you're definitely in good shape, but there's some good tight ends available late as well. So far in this tournament, this is definitely the strongest wide receiver core I have. And I'm just going to lean into it with our 6th. So that's how we've approached so far. We've gone CeeDee Lamb, Nico Collins, DK Metcalf, George Pickens, Isaiah Pacheco, Lad McConkey, and Brian Thomas. So a lot of targets, some high volatility. Nico Collins going to put up some massive spike weeks, but could possibly put up some duds, given Diggs and Tank Dell are there. Metcalf, that's what he did last year. He only scored like, I want to say 4 or 5 touchdowns, and 3 of them came against the Cowboys. Possibly could happen again. George Pickens was also a very up and down player. Had some massive games with yards after the catch, but otherwise had a few duds as well. And then McConkey and Brian Thomas are 2 rookies. Could have a bit of a slow start, but could be the league winners you want at the end of the season. CeeDee Lamb obviously going to put up great numbers every single week. So I think we need to move off that position. That's the only way to justify this start. But it's not what you really want to do in your like typical home league. If it's half PPR and like you only start 2 wide receivers, probably not the best way to go. But here on Underdog, I think it's absolutely a viable strategy. And I feel comfortable with this roster through 7 rounds. We also have our stud running back in Pacheco. I think he's one of the last ones you can consider a true stud. And that really allows us a lot of flexibility where if we get good values at quarterback, at tight end moving forward, we can pivot. But I am going to probably focus on running back and maybe a quarterback in the next like 4 rounds. I don't want to rule out a tight end pick, but I have a feeling this is going to be a triple tight end build with all three of them coming pretty late in the draft. But we're pick 94, and we have our selection of DeAndre Swift, Jaylen Warren. We could also go Dak Prescott. I do have CeeDee Lamb, and I could justify a Dak pick, but I'm going to go with Jaylen Warren. We have George Pickens, and I think Warren, Pickens, and Freiermuth are going to be pretty much the three key pieces in Pittsburgh's offense. I know that may sound a little bit rude to Najee Harris, but I'm not a Najee Harris fan anymore. Not this year. I don't think he's the most valuable running back in his offense. I would absolutely prefer to have Jaylen Warren straight up. And if anything were to happen to Najee Harris, Jaylen Warren is going to smash. But here we are, and our passing on Dak Prescott does pay off. I think that's what I'm going to do. Going at pick 99. For me, ADP of 93.6. I'm happy with that selection. We get Dak Prescott, and maybe Brandon Cooks is going to be our last wide receiver selection, but even that I don't think is like necessary. But we have CeeDee Lamb, Dak Prescott. I think the only way you like win it all with Dak Prescott is if you do have CeeDee Lamb. I think that stack is pretty critical. In regards to Dak, I don't think it's critical for Lamb, but I don't think it's a bad strategy at all. And Dak put up near MVP numbers last season. He was making his case to be the MVP. Everything clicked for Dak in that offense after the bye week. Let's remind you of Prescott's numbers, where I was ranking him and he was paying off at that ranking, consistently top 5 at the end of last season. He's also in a contract year. The Mike McCarthy offense really favors the pass. And here are the stats we're looking at. The first 6 weeks before the week 7 bye, not a single game with over 300 passing yards. The high was 272. But starting in week 7 through week 18, let's compile these stats here and take a look. 11 games, completion percentage 69.5%, yards per game 289, 30 touchdowns, an average of 2.7 touchdowns per game, only 5 interceptions in 11 games. A QB rating of 112.9. That's really high. He did take 25 sacks, but who cares? That is irrelevant for fantasy. Also had 157 rushing yards, 14.3 per game, and a rushing touchdown. Only 2 fumbles lost. So really good numbers. I could do the math on that and like give you an exact fantasy number, but to average 290 passing yards, almost 3 touchdowns per game, only half an interception per game, another 14 rushing yards. That's really good. That's what we're looking for. And quarterback is now starting to fall in this draft. We don't see a quarterback go off after Jaden Daniels except Justin Herbert. And boy, Team 10 is just making picks I would never do. You can consistently get Justin Herbert at pick 135 2 full rounds later than pick 111. They also don't even have a Charger. We are the team with Ladd McConkey, and Joshua Palmer is still on the board. I don't understand Team 10's logic at all. Team 10, I think, is just burning their entry fee. Go ahead, pay the rake. I don't care, but that's not a move I would be making at all. But if we can get Joshua Palmer falling, it's going to be kind of hard to pass up. Actually, no, we already have 6 receivers and Ladd McConkey. It would be easy to pass that up. So we're going to be looking at running back. We can consider tight end, but Goddard has already moved off the board. They're not great values. We don't have a Bear, so I'm probably not in the mood for Caleb Williams. We could go Trevor Lawrence at quarterback, but I think one of these three is still going to be available to us back on around the turn. And given our running back situation, I'm going to go Blake Corum. Gus Edwards is dealing with an injury, and while he is clearly in line to be the RB1, I don't really trust him too much. I think he should be falling, and I think there's going to be teams that get him much later in this tournament. So at ADP 118, I don't think it's... I think this ADP is a bit fake. I would expect Gus Edwards to fall at least another round, given his injury status at the moment. But if we get Caleb at pick 123, that's going to be kind of hard to pass on. Good. Brandon Cooks gets sniped for me. I was going to be tempted to grab the Brandon Cooks stack, given we have Dak Prescott. But holy shit. Caleb is really interesting. However, he has the same bye week as Dak, so I don't think I'm going to do it. And I think I'm just going to grab the starting running back for the Cleveland Browns, a player I think is going too late in drafts. And as Nick Chubb continues to fall, I'm going to take him. It feels weird to pass on quarterback here, but there's a lot of teams around this long term that already have quarterback. They invested in it highly, and I'm going to gamble that we can still get a good value coming back around. I was mentioning to you earlier that I think the value for running back is between rounds 8 and 13. And I think given how long we waited for our RB2, the fact that it's Jaylen Warren, we also have Blake Corum as our RB3, a backup. I think it's a little bit wiser to just, like, for the sake of our build, guarantee production with our RB4. And Jerome Ford is someone who I think can offer league-winning value and is also going to offer a lot of starting weeks in your lineup the first half of the season. They have a bye in week 10, and it wouldn't shock me at all to see Nick Chubb only return to the field until like week 8 or so. And even if it's like earlier, like let's say it's week 5, week 6, I would expect him to be really eased in and not really be a big factor in that offense until after the week 10 bye. I think Nick Chubb might have a role in the back half of the season, not very much in the early portion of the season. And given how we're kind of hoping for an injury above Blake Corum for him to pay off, I think kind of front-loading some points at running back with a guy like Jerome Ford is a wise move. I really love his value in round 11. I think he's a steal. I think he's going to be more valuable than Tyjae Spears, than Chase Brown. I think I'd rather have him than Javonte Williams straight up. And I think you can also argue that Ford is more valuable than even Devin Singletary and perhaps Trey Benson, Tony Pollard. I think Raheem Mostert is definitely a running back I'd rather have than Ford. Higher upside for sure. But I think once you hit Tony Pollard, Trey Benson, you can honestly argue for Ford. Ford was very productive. Chubb is old, coming off a brutal injury. His knee was demolished. And I don't worry about Deontay Foreman too much. But let's take a look at the chat. Prescott had six top three weekly finishes. Allen 5, Hurts 4. Yeah, Prescott, especially at home, plays lights out. And I do expect them to be trailing. I don't think their defense is going to be as good this year. I think he'll be rolling for fantasy. I am comfortable with him as our QB1. But Reflect the Sun, that's just it. Running backs are in short supply. I like Ford. Interesting. Chubb won't be ready for many weeks, huh? I don't think so. I really don't. With a week 10 bye, I don't think he has a role until as early as week 11 that you can count on for fantasy. And Cleveland loves to run the ball, no doubt. I really trust Jerome Ford. I mean, they kind of told you their belief in Jerome Ford as early as last year when they moved off Kareem Hunt. They obviously brought him back because of the injury to Nick Chubb, but they were already ready to move off and cement Ford as like a clear player in their backfield. But we're going to be looking at, oh, right, tight end 1 is something we can't really forget about. We could grab a value on Gabe Davis, but I don't really want to. I'm just going to grab TJ Hawkinson. I'm going to take TJ Hawkinson. A bit of a panic selection in all honesty. I expected a quarterback to be available there, maybe like Kirk Cousins even, but we kind of did miss out. There was a big run on QB after our Jerome Ford pick, and the fact that I don't have a tight end on this roster, and I know I'm drafting 3. If I wait this late, I know I'm drafting 3 of them. Maybe TJ Hawkinson's injury is not as bad as some people think. I have seen TJ fall to the 150s, but if he does come back, they have a bye in week 6. Let's say TJ Hawkinson misses the first 5 weeks and starts and plays at a full snap rate starting week 7. I would feel pretty comfortable with him. So we're hoping for the best. We're also going to draft 2 backups behind him, and I feel pretty good. But Jalen Wright is a running back I like, and I do believe he has a role. There are some clear indications that Devon Achane is going to be much more of a pass catcher, and I think Jalen Wright could possibly offer some league-winning value. And we already have 6 receivers we really trust. I'm going to grab Jalen Wright. I think this is a 3 quarterback, 3 tight end. That's already 6. Maybe it's only a 5 running back build, but we might go 6 running backs, 6 receivers. We might be just done at wide receiver. I think the talent that I have stacked up on this roster can absolutely justify that approach. So we're going to go with someone who has league-winning value. The Dolphins were a top 6 run offense last year, and they should have been top 5. If not for like 1 yard per game, they would have been top 5. They averaged 5.1 yards per carry last season. They also scored 27 rushing touchdowns as a unit. And with the age of Raheem Mostert, I think there is some league-winning value with Jalen Wright, especially considering Devon Achane has a lot of injury concerns as well, and the fact that Jalen Wright is the heaviest running back of the 3. Jalen Wright is the only one above 210 pounds. He could possibly profile as their goal line back. I would still probably expect Mostert to handle the bulk of those carries, but again, anything can happen to Mostert. And there aren't that many running backs the rest of the way I think have true league-winning upside. Like, hard to convince me that Algier actually sees much playing time. You need an injury to Bijan, and I don't think that's really going to happen. I think that's a lot less likely than above Jalen Wright in Miami. Jaleel McLaughlin is in a massive committee, and some reports suggest that maybe Estime is even above him. Antonio Gibson in New England, I don't see it. Even if Ramondre goes down, Gibson is not a running back I trust. Interesting coaching staff there. They do have the former Cleveland offensive coordinator, but I don't believe it's going to work out for Gibson. Even if Ramondre gets hurt, I don't even see him as a top 20 play, honestly. Bucky Irving, just a pass-catching specialist in my view. Chuba Hubbard might get a few starts at the beginning of the year, but that's clearly Jonathan Brooks' role. And then Khalil Herbert would need to get traded for him to pay off. Dobbins possibly is a guy you want, but that's such a gamble. Running back the rest of the way, as I was mentioning, starting in round 13, 14, falls off a cliff. So we're almost exclusively QB tight end the rest of the way. We have 5 picks left, and 4 of them are going to be quarterbacks and tight ends. But I think I'm done with wide receiver. I think so. If Stafford falls to us, I'd be happy with that. We don't have anyone to stack up with Stafford other than Blake Corum, which is really irrelevant. So that's not great, But if we can get him at pick 166, that's a pretty big value. There are 3 other teams here, though, before us with only 1 quarterback. So I doubt it happens, but I'd be comfortable with Stafford. I also like Hunter Henry. I think Henry could possibly finish as a top 15 tight end this season. He's going off the board as tight end 18. And top 15, I think, is very reasonable. There is a scenario he's top 12 because it's possible he's the literal number 1 option in the passing game in the Patriots for that bevy of receivers. He also scores touchdowns. He scored 6 last year. And if he stays healthy, I think he's one of the more talented options in that offense. So we might get Stafford. We get Stafford here. Really good value. 14 picks past ADP. He's one of my highest drafted quarterbacks. And I think in his offense, he can easily put up 20 plus points per week. Not per week, but like in any given week. That's what I meant to say. I think he'll average close to 20. And I do see the Rams as a possible Super Bowl contender. So Stafford is one of those guys where I think if he is your QB2, you can feel comfortable with him and calling it a day. But we did wait a decent amount of time to draft Dak Prescott as our QB1. So I think I'm still going to go with 3 just to play it safe. But Geno is also interesting here because we have DK. We could also go with like a Russell Wilson to pair up with Pickens. But I think because TJ Hawkinson is our tight end 1, I think it's more important to grab some safety, a safety net at the position, and I'm going to go with Tyler Conklin. I'm going to pray that we get a value at quarterback. Maybe Geno Smith falls all the way back around. But I'm going to go with the tight end I feel really safe with, grabbing Conklin, because I cannot ignore that position. TJ as our tight end 1 is very risky. It could 100% pay off. It could also blow up in our face where he doesn't start until like week 12. And unless we make the playoffs in this format, literally offer us like no production at all. Also, with J.J. McCarthy as the quarterback late in the season, assuming that happens, there's no guarantees. T.J. Hawkinson is a very risky option because he got hurt so late in the year. He blew up his ACL in, I want to say like the week of Christmas. I want to say like late December. Let me verify that. What week did he go down? Week 16, December 24th. Yeah, I was spot on, actually. One day before Christmas. So there are some reports he's ahead of schedule, but when you get injured that late in the year, what does that even mean? And usually you want to invest in players a year removed from their ACL injury, not the year right after. So I think next season, TJ Hawkinson is going to be back as like a top 3-4 tight end, most likely. This year, it's truly a gamble, but that's what Underdog is. We're gambling at the end of the day. So, but Fantasy Dog is saying Robinson. I assume Demarcus Robinson. He just goes off the board at 180, and I think given our build, it wasn't justifiable to take him at 171. And I'm honestly kind of grateful that I'm not even in the position to consider him because we took wide receiver so early on that I kind of just want to be stuck with the 6. I think I just want to stop at 6 and bet that the guys I have are the guys that I need. But Reflect the Sun, great value. That offense should be lit again. I'm pretty sure you're talking about Stafford. We got him at a significant value, so that would make the most sense. Rookie QBs love tight ends. I agree. My concern is how many games are we actually going to get out of the rookie quarterback, J.J. McCarthy. I would not be surprised if Sam Darnold starts the year. That's what they're saying. At least in training camp, he's already been declared like the starting quarterback in terms of first team reps. And I think Darnold is actually going to play like 10 weeks. I think that JJ McCarthy will not start until I believe week 11 versus Tennessee. That was my projection when I made their win-loss picks. Okay, we're on the clock though. Dang, we get sniped on Geno. Two picks before he goes off. That's unfortunate. But I could go Noah Fant. I would have loved Juwan a couple weeks ago, but now I hate him. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take Noah Fant. Howard, you're going to get banned if you keep talking like this. Do not bring my mother into this. I am not kidding. But we have TJ Hawkinson, Tyler Conklin, Noah Fant at the tight end position. All right. We could take CEH as just a bulletproof investment for our RB1 in Pacheco, because a lot of this team's success hinges on Pacheco playing a full season. And I don't think you have to worry too much about handcuffing him because we got Pacheco in round 5. It's not like it was round 1. Like, I don't think it's wise to handcuff Christian McCaffrey because when you draft him at pick 101, you're essentially saying he plays the full season. Like, there's no scenario where you take CMC at pick 1, he gets injured even for just like 2-3 games, and you're able to like make it out where like you needed the handcuff. You know what I'm saying? Like, if having the San Francisco handcuff is the path to success, then that means that Christian McCaffrey goes down. So when you invest in a running back as early as round 1, whether it be CMC, Bijan, Breece Hall, Jahmyr Gibbs, I don't think it's necessary to draft their handcuff. Maybe with Jahmyr, just because Montgomery has like a really big role. You can draft both of them, and it's fine, especially if like Montgomery falls to like pick 82, round 7. But if you feel the need to handcuff like Algier to Bijan or like Braylon Allen to Breece Hall, then that's kind of a wasted pick if one of those round 1 running backs like pays off as your league-winning option. You know what I mean? But if you wait until round 5 to grab a guy like Pacheco, James Cook, Josh Jacobs, that's a much lesser investment. And now if they miss like 3-4 weeks, you can still get by with it. And having the handcuff, for instance, like CH, a player you know is getting all of the work, if Pacheco were to go down, that I think is justified. That I think works out. But Reflect the Sun, not happy with Howard's decision. Grubb used the tight end at Washington a fair bit. Maybe Fant outperforms this year being the top dog. I think at the very least he's going to see more work because they moved off of Disley, they moved off of Parkinson, and you know Lockett's another year older. And I do think the offense is moving a little bit more towards the pass. So I would agree. I do expect Fant to have more value. But Howard trying to plead his case. Nah, man. Never justified. I mean it, though. Like, if you keep talking that way, I'll probably just ban you. I know you're here all the time, and I appreciate your support, but nah, man. Don't ever say that shit again. But our last pick is absolutely going to be a quarterback. And options that we could go with would be a Minnesota quarterback with TJ Hawkinson. We could also go Russell Wilson. Oh, did Russell Wilson already get taken? It would appear so. Yeah, Russell Wilson went pick 194. We can't go Russell Wilson. Nobody else works out for a stack, so it's just best player available. May is interesting, but I just don't want to really tie ourselves to the Patriots offense without any of the receivers. And here he goes, so it doesn't matter. We could go J.J. McCarthy. We could also go Derek Carr for like a floor. We could go Daniel Jones, Bo Nix, Gardner Minshew. I think Sam Darnold is honestly the most interesting option. I think Darnold could be the most underrated quarterback who's actually going undrafted. I've taken him plenty of times before, and we do have TJ Hawkinson, so I think it is the most justifiable stack. It's between Darnold and JJ McCarthy. Let me know in the chat. Who do you think I should take? Should I take Darnold or JJ McCarthy? Knowing that I have Dak Prescott stacked up with CeeDee Lamb, I think that's the quarterback who needs to pay off in the fantasy playoffs that would justify needing more production in the beginning of the season. So I'm thinking I'm going to go Darnold, assuming he maybe has some spike weeks in the first half of the year. And who knows, if he retains the job all year long, then that's definitely a good pick. But I think I'm comfortable relying on Prescott and Stafford at the end of the year, and I think I'm going to go with Darnold. Reflect the Sun wants a flyer on Penix Jr. I don't think he really sees the field this year, man. I'm going to go with Darnold. I'm going to take a player who is just not really invested in, kind of a contrarian play, and someone who I do know will get some starts. I really believe Darnold has at least until week 6, at least until the bye, to keep that job. They get the Jets in week 5. I think he will play until that game in London. And then after that, it's just a question of how many games are they losing and how hungry is the fan base for JJ. Is he even ready, though? So I actually like Darnold a decent amount. So this is our team. We get pick 3. And Dak Prescott, Matthew Stafford, Sam Darnold are our quarterbacks. Stafford, the only stack we have is Blake Corum, so kind of irrelevant in terms of stacking. But Prescott, we do have paired up with CeeDee Lamb. And Darnold, we do have paired up with TJ Hawkinson. So 2 players in Minnesota that we're hoping are better than the ADP would suggest in order to contribute. But running back, we waited until round 5 to grab our first one. And then we waited until round 8 to grab our second one. We have Isaiah Pacheco, Jaylen Warren, Blake Corum, Jerome Ford, Jalen Wright, and CEH. But there's definitely some high upside with these rookies. Blake Corum could be a league winner. So could Jalen Wright. Who knows? But I do expect very safe production from Jerome Ford. Jaylen Warren with a lot of spike week potential. And then Pacheco I view as a top 10 running back. So I think this is definitely competitive, and if anything were to happen to Pacheco, we do have CEH, who averaged 13 fantasy points per game in 2 starts last season. Who knows? Maybe he sees more targets and offers some individual spike weeks of his own later on. But tight end, we grabbed TJ Hawkinson as our tight end 1, definitely a risky proposition. Then Tyler Conklin as our tight end 2. Very safe floor play, but not like a high upside unless he scores a bunch of touchdowns. And then we're hoping that Fant also produces good numbers. And yeah, let's hope that TJ Hawkinson works out for us. But wide receiver is really the strength of this roster, and that's why we only went with 6 of them. We took CeeDee Lamb, Nico Collins, DK Metcalf, George Pickens in the first 4 rounds. And then in round 6 and 7, we took Ladd McConkey, Brian Thomas. So very strong group. Hopefully it's enough. And this is going to be an interesting team. 3-6-6-3 is the build. I don't do it that often, but I think if you are going to justify only 6 receivers, you have to do it the way that I did it in this draft, drafting very productive options early and often to start your team. But Fantasy Dog did want us to go Darnold over JJ, so I'm happy that worked out. Reflect the Sun, Carr finished the season really well. Howard, I don't even know what you're talking about. And Reflect the Sun, yeah, I'd have taken Darnold too between the two, but eek gads. I know it's not ideal, but in round 18, when you're drafting a quarterback, you're kind of just hoping for the best in general. And maybe there's a scenario where Darnold plays the entire year. Maybe he has a Baker Mayfield-esque season ahead of him. That's kind of what his contract suggests was the deal that they offered him when he signed up with Minnesota. So that's it for this video. Thank you very much for watching. And if you have not already, hit that subscribe button and like this video as well. And I appreciate all of you guys for hanging out. Maybe a little bit less so for Howard, given his comments. But Fantasy Dog, appreciate you. And I hope you all have a great afternoon. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. I'll see you on Friday with the next live stream in 2 days. But have a good one. Bye-bye.